Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. Now that I'm older, I understand that my parents were just being mean to me. We weren't stinking rich, but we were comfortable. There is no reason why they should have treated me the way that they did. They practically hid me away like they were ashamed of me or something. I was mostly in the basement, and the only other place I could go to was school. I always thought something was wrong with me and that maybe I did something to my parents not to care about me. That haunted me for years. I would cry to sleep, especially when I remembered how my friends spoke about their families. I couldn't understand why mine was so different. Both my parents think I am a mistake. My parents married young and at the time were still trying to put themselves together. So they didn't live in the best neighborhood. There was a robbery. My dad wasn't home. My mom got raped, and I was the result. There was so many complications with the pregnancy that my mom almost died, and the doctor advised that she shouldn't have any more children. They were scared of losing my mom, so they did a hysterectomy. My parents never stopped blaming me for what happened. Dad was angry because I deprived him of having his own biological children. Mom, because she was raped, and she almost died giving birth to a thief's child. Would someone tell me how that is my fault? This was very hard for me to live with. I couldn't do anything good in my parents' eyes. It was as though when they saw me, they saw a thief. I lived like a beggar in my parents' house. I never experienced their love or care. When I didn't have to go to school, I could stay in the basement all day and no one would check in on me. They didn't care if I ate or if I was okay. In fact, I think they would have preferred I didn't do anything that made them spend their money on me. The most annoying part was that whenever we had to go out, their attitude changed towards me. It was all for show, I'm sure. My parents had special clothing for me for when we had to present ourselves somewhere. They would treat me like I was the best thing that had happened to them. However, anyone who was very observant would notice something wrong. You can't fake love. None of my parents went to college, and I wanted a degree, but I didn't see them paying for it. My best friend and I made a pact to do everything we could to ensure we had good GPAs to be awarded scholarships. I preferred to stay at my best friend's house, so I was mostly with him during the weekends. Those were my happiest times because his family was so loving, you could feel it. It was nothing forced. I made up my mind that I would pick a school very far away from home and never come back. I wouldn't have to see my parents again if I didn't want to. The thought of that was relieving. Sometimes I wish I was never born, or they would have just put me up for adoption. Anyways, that was years ago. It's safe to say I made good on my promise. I went to school, got a degree in business administration, and I'm now running my own business. I like being a boss of my own, though it comes with its challenges, but it's still very fulfilling. I live in Georgia with my fiance, who is the best thing that ever happened to me. I love her so much. We were having a wonderful time until one Friday evening. We heard a knock on our door, and there was my worst nightmare: my parents. Once I saw them, I closed the door and went back in. My fiance asked me who that was, and I replied, "No one important." She could see my facial expression and knew I was lying, so she went by the door and saw it was my parents, so she let them in. I was upset that she did that. I knew she would if I told her who it was, which was why I didn't want to. My fiance is so loving that she wanted me to make peace with my parents. I explained that she had never met them, so she should not suggest such a thing. So often we argued about the situation with my parents, but I wouldn't budge. My fiance grew up in a foster home and basically had to fend for herself most of her life. So she doesn't understand why I won't keep in touch with my parents no matter what they did to me. Trust my parents to act like they did nothing to me, and I was the one who ran away and didn't keep in touch. We were just about to have dinner when they came, so my fiance offered them some. At first, they declined, saying they wanted to stay only a short time because they had yet to lodge in any hotel. I knew they were scheming to stay at my house, and my fiance was oblivious. She told them we had more than enough room for them in the house. They went on and on about how proud they were of me and always believed in me. I ignored them all the time they talked. But once they said that, I snapped. At that moment, I felt all the pain I had felt all the while I lived with them. The rejection, neglect, and abuse, both emotional and physical, that I received from them years ago. They had gotten on my nerves and they needed to leave. My fiance held me tightly as I clenched my fist, trying to stop myself from saying anything. I wanted them to reveal themselves on their own so my fiance would realize they were not worth it. I suspected my best friend's mom gave my mom my address, so I called her and she confirmed it. She told me to give my parents a chance and that she knew they had no excuse for treating me terribly, but maybe they wanted to make amends, and she wanted that for me more than anything. I told her that as far as I was concerned, I was an orphan, and the closest thing I had to parents was she and her husband, and I am most grateful for them. She told me that no matter how much I wanted to lock that part of my life away, I needed to face my demons. I needed to overcome them because they affected me, whether I knew it or not. She told me that this was my chance to finally be free. She always gave the best advice. This time it was hard to swallow, but I decided to give my parents the benefit of the doubt. Let's see how the next few days go. I will try my best to keep an open mind, though they have their own agenda. And it has nothing to do with making amends. Things were going smoothly, though you could feel the tension that was expected. They still hadn't acknowledged that they were wrong or hurt me all those years ago. If they didn't bring it up, and I decided I wasn't going to bring it up either because it meant they were not remorseful, for some reason, they kept extending their stay. And my fiance, excited to see my parents, kept obliging them. I thought she had a false sense of hope, but I didn't want to rub it in her face. One morning, they said they wanted to speak to me. I knew it wouldn't be good. My mom asked me to pay off their mortgage and car loan. I blatantly refused because they were not entitled to my money. After all, I was the child that brought them shame. My parents blew up on me and demanded that I do what they asked as a way to be grateful to them. My head was spinning. What on earth do I have to be grateful to them for? All they did was bring pain to my life. They made me miserable, and they wanted to take credit when I finally escaped them and made something for myself. I let them know that as far as I was concerned, I didn't have parents, and it was time for them to leave my house because they had overstayed their welcome. This time, my fiancé could not stop me. They had overstepped, which I knew they would. That was what I was waiting patiently for, so I could make them leave. I told them never to reach out to me again or come to my house, and if they did, I would get a restraining order against them. My fiancée was disappointed that their visit didn't go as planned. She had wished that I could reconcile with my parents. Somewhere deep down, I wished the same, but I knew how they were. They probably only came to see me for my money. I wasn't going to become the child with parasites as parents. I thought everything was done with my parents. My best friend's mom called me yesterday and said she came by her house to cause a scene, and that she brainwashed me and made me cut her and her husband off. At this point, I think she would do anything to get my attention, which I am unwilling to give her. I apologized to my best friend's mom and asked her to avoid my parents at all costs. And if they did anything crazy, she should please report it to the police. NTA, but your parents are. How can they blame you for what your father did? If they didn't want the child, they had options. They could have put you up for adoption at the very least. There is no point in bringing a child into the world and neglecting them. NTA, you need to get that restraining order because I don't think your parents would stop. Your mom especially. It irks me that you are her biological son. She carried you in her womb. And she could still treat you like that? It would even be more understandable if it was your father alone, because he didn't get to have a biological child. My husband and I have 2 kids, aged 10 months and 3 years old, and I've recently returned to work. Childcare is extremely expensive, and so my mom, who was recently widowed, came to help us with them. She babysits them when we are working, and she has been living in our guest suite. My husband and her do not get along. She was critical of him when we were dating because he doesn't have a good job and is very messy. I admit the very messy part bothers me too, but at this point, it's not worth the argument, and I just do all the housework. So they fight a lot, and my husband wants her out of the house. I told him then we need to pay her to care for the kids. $2,200 will allow her a small studio apartment and basic things. But he doesn't want to pay her, saying she's my mom, so I should pay her. I told him she is taking care of our kids, so he needs to pay at least half, but he won't since he hates her. Okay, then I told him I can tell her it's not working out, and we can sign a contract either for a private nanny or a daycare, which costs around $2,500 to $3,000 for 2 kids in our area. Then he gets mad at me and says it's too expensive and I should be taking care of the kids. I make $4,000 a month after taxes, so it makes sense for me to go back to work. But he says since I'm choosing to go back to work, I should pay for all the daycare. He even referred to his mom, saying she was a stay-at-home mom and happy about it, so I should be too. We've had multiple fights about it, and I am sick and tired of it. Right now, I'm paying for everything regarding my mom, and I think it's unfair he won't let me use any joint money because she is babysitting his kids too. But he seems to think anything regarding the kids is my job. Are you tempted to get a place for yourself, your mom, and your kids, and leave your husband in his mess? As he refuses to understand, you're both responsible financially for your kids, not just you. Same for housework, you deserve better. NTA, but he definitely is. NTA, but why are you staying with this awful man? Even on a rational basis, you shouldn't quit taking care of the children, nor should you be solely responsible for any childcare costs. Even if you were only breaking even on childcare costs, it is very important for the woman to be in the workforce for a variety of reasons. If you try to get back to work after a long gap, you will never recover career momentum. If you are in the workforce, you will gain experience, be more marketable, and your salary will rise. Also, especially considering what an ass you are married to, you would be well advised to keep working so that you have economic freedom if the marriage becomes unbearable or falls apart, while he would still theoretically owe child support. The reality is that a single mother without a good job history is going to have a difficult time economically versus a single mother who has been in the workforce and getting usual promotions and raises. NTA, not going to lie, your title definitely did not prepare me for the full story and seems unintentionally misleading. This isn't about your husband not wanting to pay your mother's housing. It's about him refusing to pay towards childcare, which is beyond baffling to me. Your husband absolutely needs to be contributing towards childcare. And I get the distinct impression he's a controlling a-hole when it comes to everything. So clearly, your mother is not the issue here. He is. Honestly, he sounds like an absolute nightmare to deal with. And part of me feels like you might just be better off moving somewhere else with your mother. His child support would probably be more than he contributes right now. This is not a partnership. Whatever you do, don't let things continue like this. So, for context, I, 18 female, have always had a rocky relationship with my parents, especially my mom. My mom very consistently lies about me for attention, and it makes me very upset. But I never really called her out on it. I decided my senior year that I was not going to college for personal reasons, finances, and I already have a career path I like. My mom didn't like my decision at all and was very, very actively against it. So, my mom invites me and my boyfriend to help her at this national conference. For privacy reasons, I will not be disclosing any more information about the conference itself. Besides, it was a business conference. It's about a 10-hour drive away, and she said she would drive us there, pay for our room and food, and give us about $500 to go for the week. We both agreed and go a few weeks later. It was a lot of very physical labor all at once, and then sitting and doing nothing for hours, so we frequently wandered around the conference. We were walking around and ran into my mom talking to her colleagues, a pretty large group of people. I don't remember how many. She introduced both of us to her and her colleagues, asked me what my future plans were. I said I wasn't planning on going to college and wanted to do something like personal training. I've been a competitive lifter since I was 15 and have built a following in my area. My mom quickly cut me off and said I was taking a gap year. After she finished, I said in front of everyone that I had no plans of going to college or taking a gap year. And I told my mom that. My mom tried to laugh it off and said I was taking a gap year. I said I was working towards certification and that I never had any intentions of going to college. Her colleagues were visibly uncomfortable, but my mom kept talking. She mentioned that I graduated first in my class and could go to college wherever I wanted. That is not even close to true. I barely got through my senior year and almost didn't graduate because I missed so many days. I corrected her again, saying I did not graduate first in my class and that valedictorian graduated first in my class. She tried to laugh it off and said I was close. I corrected her and said I wasn't even close. Her colleagues then excused themselves and left. I and my boyfriend also left and explored the conference more. Later, she got really mad at me and yelled at me because I embarrassed her in front of her colleagues. I told her that if she didn't lie, it wouldn't have happened. She said I always embarrass her and I just need to keep my mouth shut. I got so angry I started to tear up, and I and my boyfriend left to go to the hotel. My boyfriend says my actions were justified and he is proud of me for standing up for myself. I am still second guessing whether that was the right thing to do. AITA? My mom lied about this a lot before. People came up and asked, and it creates confusion. I had asked her to stop before, and she clearly had not, and that's why I chose to confront her then. NTA, But next time, don't attend events like this with her or go anywhere with her for that matter. She's never going to stop and put her aspirations on you. Also, I don't want to freak you out or anything, but in high school, I did not want college and was also looking into going into fitness and nutrition, and it did not go well. It's very much a gig economy with no benefits when you are starting out. If you do not want to do college, you will need to find survival work as you work towards building your brand and reputation. We are also coming out of a pandemic. Getting paid clients is tough, especially keeping them on. Honestly, I know it's not your thing, but either a second job or part time in college until you get a degree will better sustain you in the long term, especially around health insurance and the inevitable unemployment between slow times, minimal income. NTA, but just let your mom have the gap year story and leave it alone. Who the hell cares what some strangers hear? This strange obsession so many people have on here to just constantly correct and argue trivial crap, which creates bigger problems, is astounding. Your mom should not have lied, but she was probably embarrassed about your choice because she wants you to succeed in life, even though you can do just fine without a college education. There's many people who still believe otherwise. Picking and choosing battles is part of life. Sometimes it sucks, but it's better than the alternative. ESH. Yes, she shouldn't have lied about you to try and make herself look good, but you will likely never see these people again. Instead of biting your tongue and waiting to tear into your mom in private, you called her out in front of colleagues. You jeopardized her livelihood to score points. There's a time and a place.